Thank you all for visiting. Thank you all for registering. And I hope those who are not there, they will definitely watch this recording. Let us start with a meme because nowadays, yeah, everything has to start with a meme. So let's start with this. So this all data science was not such a huge term a decade ago. What we used to know was called business intelligence. And there were all sorts of business intelligence products from all sorts of small and big vendors, mostly the software product companies. And a big chunk of that was taken by the database companies. And they were selling this product that they called business intelligence, which was a software layer over your data warehouse. Of course, data warehouse is where all your data, enterprise data or customer data, as you call it, was stored. And the marketing that all these software companies used to do when selling their business intelligence software was that they would give you all the things that you need to make decisions. However, it turns out that all the while they were promising this and they were not giving it in a really good, well packaged way, ready for consumption for the CEO. All they were giving was some SQL query results, forecasts, charts, a lot of data again. So they are not actually giving a lot of business intelligence. They were giving a lot of business data again. And it was again up to do a lot of meetings and to and forth. However, the promise of that business intelligence was something like this, where there they could have, the CEO wanted was some real time insight that they could immediately action upon. About me, okay, I am somewhere in the data space. I work mostly as a data engineer now. The data science part is what I am trying to bring more and more into the product that I am developing, which is a domain storytelling product. And this is about some representations of natural language. I take that, process it, and try to serve it in such a way that you can build apps over whatever domain knowledge you have very quickly. I have worked at Oracle, Global Logic, and I started my career with IBM. 1998 to 1995 RK Mission batch. I was at Delhi Public School, Ranchi, and then at IIT Kharagpur doing mechanical engineering till 2001. I also recently did an advanced program in data science. This is a certificate program by IIM Kolkata. Okay, here is the agenda. So we will just go a little bit about data science. That's sort of a philosophical discussion on the name data science. And we will then cover up all the data science history, how data science has progressed, where is it now. We'll quickly then go on to discussing the data science specializations, which is the different kinds of roles or hats that a data scientist wears. It may be one person, it may be one person who is an expert in one of these specializations. Because it's a very new field, then we'll have some talk about Kaggle and degree courses and online courses. And okay, what is why is the term data science so confusing to people? Because it contains data and people do understand data now. But what has data science has to do with science itself? Okay, let's see how science is done. So in science, you usually have a what is called an hypothesis. A hypothesis can be built either manually, which means you put forth something, or automatically there are tools that suggest a few hypotheses and you choose one of them. So these are set of rules that are true with certain probabilities. You of course state your assumptions, prior conditions. And you also observe a few things, you put it in tabular graphical mode. And you put a lot of facts and you interpret them. And you do reasoning. Now, the reasoning part is usually, as we know it, as we have learned through our school years, is a sequence of logical arguments. You could have some other person, a panel sitting before you, and you try and put forth your opinions, your arguments, and you always see how you stand, because they are going to challenge you. Now the new way, the data science way, is to argue as much as possible using large scale data. You have probably millions and billions of examples to show, to stand behind you. There is a statistical basis on what you are saying. So, and there are, of course, the other reasoning way has to do with very deep psychological experiences, which you cannot measure, which you cannot put a number on. Uh, there have been spiritual leaders who have often told you the truth, and they have told us in a very profound way. However, those are not numbers. You agree. They don't seem logical also, but somehow you feel that these things are true. So I consider all of these as scientific methods. And any scientific method has some publication, some people commenting on that, on the reasoning or the data or the observations. So an example, so if you have to predict acceptance into a university, then logical reasoning will have some arguments and you go back and forth between people. Our reasoning with data, you can actually shorten that cycle quite a little bit. I would not say 100% with machines, because you can do some experiments, you can do, and the machine will help you reach to your sound arguments, the basis of your opinion, whether you are accepting or rejecting the hypothesis that you started with, quite fast. This is a scientific methodology. It has got certain phases that you must go through. However, in practice, it's still fresh. This is an evolving management subdiscipline. So this is, I consider scientific methodology as an evolving management concern. And soon we can have project management practices specifically tailored for data science projects. This is an interdisciplinary field, and I hope experts from all industries or domains to help evolve this scientific management subdiscipline. And the real promise of data science is towards what I call actionable intelligence. And it's slightly more focused than the term artificial intelligence. Actionable intelligence is all about reaching some decisions and knowing the risks that come along with those decisions as fast as possible. And of course, we are feeding some experience into the processing engine, which is again based on all the 50 years of functions and algorithms that computer science has developed, that processes all this data, understands it, and then presents you with a few options, as well as, and this is the most important part, risks. Now let us talk about the field itself, the history of the field, how we got from this SQL queries to what we call mining and business intelligence to finally machine learning and AI. There is a lot of marketing going on right now, and AI happens to be the term that's at the top of the word clouds. The roots of data science are in statistical inference. The term data science was used in 1962 by an American statistician, John Tukey. And since then, there have been a lot of statistical algorithms. The ones that I think are the easiest to understand, and I would recommend anybody starting with data science to start with clustering, specifically k-means clustering. Then you go on to regression. The two simplest ones are GLM and LDA here. And then you go on to discuss odds and probabilities, which lead you to classification and how you do classification. How do you segregate examples? How do you predict which category? Is it a fraud or is it an anomaly? So that's an example of a very useful classification. And of course, there are all those examples going on, like classifying images into different cats, dogs, or classifying natural language into being offensive or not. When you go in, when all the statistical inference researchers were doing all this, they were often asked to explain in better terms how sure are they of things that they are saying. And they used all these different metrics which explained how are good their models are. So they would use things like this curve that I am showing here. And this is called the receiver operating characteristic curve. And that green line out there is what the model wants to achieve. And maybe somewhere down the line, you are at this purple line. And even this dashed line is where is the 50% random line. This is a chart between true positive rate and false positive rate. And what you want is to maximize the area between your purple line so that it eventually can become the green line. That is probably the practical maximum of goodness of fit. So these are all very interesting concepts, and this is what this kind of curves were what actually drew me into data science, because in industry I was always struggling with trying to convince people with opinions. But when I had these particular metrics, it was only then that a data scientist could actually connect with business people and vice versa. Of course, to understand all these, you definitely if you're getting started, you'd get a lot of these terms, and it would definitely help you to get yourself a glossary and become familiar with it. Eventually, the field moved into what is called machine learning a decade ago. And first of all, the first ML techniques were all about simple algorithms which dealt with counting and combining the permutations, combinations, and finding out the probabilities, making an estimate based on simple counting. No calculus involved, no great statistical theory. So some of them, like recommendation engines and basket analysis, are based largely on just linear algebra, and they are not so much into calculus or functions or gradients, some of the advanced mathematical concepts that scare people off. However, some of the advanced techniques like deep learning, they are somewhat difficult to understand, and there are latest architectures of neural networks like transformers, which are based on embeddings, which are all big tensors and matrices of representations of natural language and other things. And these days, the latest research, if you're a researcher in data science, you do well to study what has not been studied so well, and you can start with things like bias detection, ethics, geometric deep learning, which is all about studying examples that are connected with each other. All the while we have been studying examples that are orthogonal to each other, that are not connected with each other. But something like a Facebook graph, if you are going to study then you cannot ignore the connections between all the ideas and elements. And the explainability of a data science result is really important, and this is where newbies, the one who start with data science, often get to this part only towards the very end, which is not great. I definitely recommend to start with explainability and get the usual line, SHAP, and these kind of tools which explain which all features are responsible by what degree towards a decision. And this should be in their toolkits as early as possible. So this is one of the glossary links that I am sharing. It's from Google Machine Learning Glossary. It's a nice glossary. And let me just open this one and share that one. This particular glossary, so if I were to just say area under the ROC curve, as you can see, there are a lot of links and all the interlinked concepts are nicely described. And as I scroll through, you also find a lot of images and diagrams up there helping with the explanation.
Madhu, we can't see the details. We are just on the slide with bookmarks.
Okay.
Bookmark a glossary today.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, we can see it now. Yeah.
Oh, it took some time. I did nothing. Okay, that's fine. So here is that description of a bigram, for example, which is a natural language processing construct. So there are terms like bounding box, which are related to image processing. So even when introducing some of the concepts, understanding what clustering means, this glossary would actually have good, very well done diagrams. And I definitely would recommend anyone starting with data science to spend a good time with this glossary. And wherever you see diagrams, just try to understand that. It will give you a very good head start for data science. Okay. Okay, let's now talk about the data science specializations. Data science is an interdisciplinary field, and you definitely need some programming skills. There are almost all colleges do teach programming skills. Many of you who undertake science streams in their +2 are introduced to some form of programming, and the maths and statistics part as well. So anybody who is not from a science stream would have to have some ground to cover on basic probability statistics as well as basic programming. The good news is that learning at least programming has become a lot easier due to various kinds of online courses or tools and interactive browser-based development environments where you don't have to waste a lot of effort into getting your machine set up and all. You can just get started with learning any programming language fairly quickly, and you can actually uh, cross that barrier within 1 or 2 hours. Statistics is going to take time. This is something that any aspiring data scientist should be most diligent upon. This is something that your brain needs time to assimilate. At least I even if I was good at maths, uh, I found statistics, learning statistics a little tough. And primarily the reason was because I was always thinking more in terms of how software development happens. So I was a bit hardened there. I think it will be easier for freshmen to learn statistics, and there are resources available now which explain it using a lot of diagrams and animations, and there it becomes a lot easier. I didn't learn it that way. I tried to learn statistics with books and I found it tough. A perfect data scientist has to be a good communicator. He has to be great at statistics. He should understand business and he should understand business people as well. So just understanding the industry is not enough. You have to understand how business leaders think, what are their priorities, and you have to have basic programming skills. You would often offload very complicated programming to a data engineer, something that requires a lot of integrations with lot of systems and all. But if you're good at statistics and you're okay with programming, you can still write very good data science apps as a data scientist. So here is a role, data scientist decisions. He is a business leader, and this person has spent quite a lot of time understanding the key problems of the business, and he is really passionate about all the metrics and key performance indicators that define and that help any business benchmark itself against competitors. And this person has to be good with optimization, and this person is the one who drives the data science projects in the organization. He works with the whole team. He first builds the team and he works with the team, and this person will be the one who will be responsible for the failures or the successes primarily. Now she can also be from various other fields, because it's any business leader from any industry, such a person can be a good decision maker, and usually these people are really good at statistics. So for them, driving a data science project is easy, and if you want to become a data science decisions, then even doing an MBA the traditional way is a well accepted pathway. So you can go into Harvard and do an MBA. Somebody who is really good at organizing people should actually take this path. I'm saying no coding, but I would assume that some sort of understanding of how programs work would be nice. I'm saying no coding because if you're really good at people and the industry, you do not like programming, but you understand what programming is, then this is your best bet to data science. The researcher, on the other hand, this person is, of course, this person has got the mathematical acumen, good with abstracting ideas and explaining them to business. However, this person is also good at converting the business problems into numbers problems. So if you are good there, you understand how to decompose a matrix into three matrices that multiply together, and you can work the magic from there and also explain to business what those three matrices mean. Then there is huge ground to be covered in research, and it's going to be really satisfying for anybody good at maths to take up data science instead of going into topology, and there are all sorts of mathematics, applied maths fields that are still a lot in theory phase and not so practical applications are there. If you are a mathematician who wants to do something and immediately contribute and immediately have the impact on society, then you rather go into data science. Now all the software engineers are also have to have, there are a lot of software engineers or a lot of CS guys who kind of don't want to do management, don't want to go a lot into business. What they love is doing quick apps. They are sort of data science practitioners, and I would say I am AI apps data scientist. I do not create new algorithms. I do not actually drive a big company and plan data science projects. So a machine learning engineer or a data engineer, there is a subtle difference between these two. So these guys are who are actually doing the impactful work, bringing immediate value, putting data science to work. There, of course, you have to be polyglot, which means the programming languages part, you have to know a variety of different programming languages so that you can create your AI apps using the right tools for the right kind of job. And you can also do some DevOps, which means you are familiar with how to code IT infrastructure, things like Docker and all. This is a fairly new role, the data scientist MLOps. And here it's all about the quality part of the whole data science pipeline. Somebody who owns the quality of the predictions, the quality of the data flowing in. And in the background here, I am showing the CRISP DM methodology, which had been around for 2 decades. And so that's now that even that methodology is being refined, and that's somewhat that's primary concern of an MLOps data scientist. So you will be dealing with DevOps and the sanctity of data, and usually no linear algebra. So that's MLOps. Just a quick overview. This is the flow, how data flows and all. DVC right there at the center stands for data version control. I'm showing MLflow, which is again a data workflow tool, Apache Airflow. You can write some code to do data flow. So you can see it, this diagram shows the data engineer and data scientist working at different parts of the full data pipeline. They are specialists that do their part of the data work. Data scientist has to do more with the data, with the model training and all. The data engineer will help get the correct data and help it get as fast as possible, process it, transform it. Usually the job of the data engineer is very similar to a lot of backend engineers that are there in the software engineering world. Okay, Kaggle.com is one of the platforms that help you do browser-based data science. If you're starting with data science, one thing that I emphasized upon was having a ready glossary, the Google Machine Learning Glossary. On another tab on the browser, you can just open Kaggle, create an account there. There are a lot of high quality tutorials, data sets, notebooks, examples. There is also a Kaggle courses section in which you have a lot of sections that help you navigate through the different topics in data science. It's not the best course, but the beauty about Kaggle is that many people do that free course, and many people have their comments, and you can learn from what mistakes others did a lot on this platform than any other platform. The GPU usage resource limits are also very generous, 30 hours per week. So you are doing very large scale data science, you'd really appreciate having GPU. Another platform is SaturnCloud.io. It's a fairly new platform. It has been brought up by NVIDIA. NVIDIA has their own set of libraries called Rapids, which is based on the other libraries like QDF, QML, and so on. And those are very NVIDIA specific. This whole ecosystem is NVIDIA specific, but NVIDIA happens to be a leader in GPU hardware. They're also quite up there when it comes to the software on GPU and doing and executing very successful data science projects on GPUs. So they are the ones who accelerated deep learning during the last decade with their hardware. And however, they're providing a little less generous usage limits. Okay, let's do a tour of the data science courses. Again, it's not easy to learn data science yourself. So if you have that years ahead of you, you don't have a lot of other commitments, I would definitely recommend anybody to do a full-time course. And when you are going on to choose your degree course, where it's in bachelor's or master's, you actually have to start. You are already probably started with data science. You have done some Kaggle. You know at least a good chunk of the terminology. You understand what the field is about, and then you also have some dream project, some dream impact that you want to have on the society. Every kid has that. So some people have 10s or 20 ideas, and you can choose between a few what can be solved with data science. Now that you are familiar with what is solvable, what kind of things are probably very easy to do with data science, just turn your dream project into a dream data science project and start from there. And then you can find it will become a lot easier to choose your ideal degree course. It may or may not be CS, it may be law. If you're really passionate about making an impact in judiciary, in removing the backlog of all the cases pending since decades, you should actually choose law and not a major in CS. However, so this is just an example where you are probably, you're so good that you can go to any college. Now, if you very few parents will love you not going into the top college available and instead opting for something offbeat. So that's fine. You can go into Premium Institute, do CS, go for applied maths or stats, and get your electives. And these electives can be related to your dream data science project. And you can either go for some IoT stuff or more into statistics stuff. You can go into more business-like topics like optimization, stochastic processes. If you think that after CS you're going to go for MBA, then you do well to pick econometrics as an elective, so that you get that head start. That said, there are actually courses that are named BS in data science or BTech in data science. In India, we have these colleges which offer you right after +2, you can go into one of these schools, which will give you a complete overview. I don't think that this will be very deep. They will not try to just make you a data scientist research, but they will definitely build out a platform for you from where you can actually showcase your dream data science project, and you can then go into either of the research or the decisions specialization paths. I can definitely recommend all of these courses that I am showing here. That the ones that I do not know much about, I can't recommend. I would rather, if you're not going into one of these courses, at least in India, try out some core domain, the traditional courses, and pick data science from some of the online options that you have. You can do a parallel IIT Madras BSc in programming and data science. That's a 3-year online course. They do have an exam and all, and this has got pedigree. So if you're doing law from the top law school and you pick up this course, then it will be a very, that's almost a killer combination. There are other options of online courses you can do from one of this is what I would recommend. It's fairly easy to get into a plethora of online courses that are available. They are not too expensive. I won't call that affordable, but they are not too expensive either. If you go from a bachelor's degree online course from one of the global universities. So here are some of the full-time on-campus courses, global. These are the ones that, I mean, anybody would recommend. It's not just a question of me recommending or me knowing about. And there are many more that are also worth it if you can go into this. Now, there are some certificate or PG diploma courses. The one that I would recommend is the PGDBA. It's a joint endeavor by 3 institutes of West Bengal, and they're doing a great work. I have been into 2 of these institutions, and Indian Statistical Institute, I have spent 2 days, and I found, and I still think about those 2 days spent at ISI, and I wonder, with that caliber of professors and infrastructure, why is this institute kind of so underrated? But I think its time has come, and soon ISI will, I mean, loved by students and researchers alike. There are other PG diplomas, professional certificate courses, and there is a lot of marketing around all those courses, but I am not sure I can recommend with eyes shut about any of them. If that is, if you know better, you can just comment. You can reach out to the Pragthani YouTube site, and I would encourage everybody to add a few things there. That actually genuinely helps all the students. This course, PGDBA, is a 3-year course. There is an entrance exam and an interview to get in. You need graduation for that as a prerequisite. IIT Guwahati has an MTech course. The entry is through GATE. There are global master's courses. These are the ones that are tending to be among the QS survey rankings of these courses are quite good. And you will meet professors who have been pioneers of this industry, of data science, of applied maths, of statistics. If you go into one of these global master's degree full-time courses. By the way, there is a course in Cornell University here, which is an applied statistics course. And that can be one which you could get readily accepted into, because a lot of people do not want to go into applied statistics. But if you're going to research with data science, I would recommend that Cornell University course. There are also online doctorate in degree courses. You can get a PhD online, and that's a very good way to add to your credentials, whatever age you are, and to prove that you can you have the data science pedigree. You are really good in business and you see some problem that can be solved with data science, then these universities can actually help you formulate that problem as a data science problem. And it will not be full of lot of maths, but it will be a novel way to solving a business problem that you know best, and you can earn the PhD in process. For many of the initial learners, when there were no courses, the courses online, and I'm just including Coursera, but there are other platforms like edX who also have good courses, Udacity and Udemy. And there are other online platforms like brilliant.org who help you get real good with the academic kind of courses. This course, the machine learning Stanford University course, is the one taught by Andrew. And he was co-founder of Coursera, and Andrew has a lot of fans, and he's so good at converting business problems or business priorities into data science that most of the students find his machine learning course on Coursera as the one to get started with. And I would definitely recommend this course. You could also go for Coursera Plus, which has an unlimited number of courses at just $5K per month subscription. So if you really have time, then you can make best use of your money by opting for one of these subscription courses. You can do a lot of courses together, add to your skills. Of course, if you go on to apply for any interview, then how you fare at the interview would matter a lot more than any of the degrees of the courses. And how you document it and how well can you explain your dream data science project is going to count into your interview. Okay, quickly raised here the frequently asked questions by students. So, okay. There, yeah, the one thing that I want to highlight is you need to build a data science portfolio with a Python library called Dash. You can do apps, and you also have to have very good documentation around your data science project. This is a key element to proving your credentials as a data scientist and to land you a good data science job. You have to have a Dash or Shiny or any other library which helps you quickly do web app development. There are all various ways to do web apps. AI apps. But I find that if you start with something like Shiny for R, for Python, if you start with Dash or Streamlit or even Gradio, there are some libraries that help you quickly package up nicely whatever your linear algebra statistics optimization problem that you have solved in your data science project. So people from non-science streams, of course, this field needs that because your industry needs that. Law firms need data scientists. Medical fraternity definitely needs a lot of people who are also good with understanding numbers and interpreting them. However, the thing about non-science colleges is there is sort of a faculty shortage. It's not easy for any non-engineering faculty to quickly learn and teach you data science. Soft skills, okay, of course, uh, for a data scientist, it's a lot more important than it is for a software engineer or a software architect. Okay, thanks all for listening to my data science thoughts, more thoughts, and there are more questions that answers. And any questions or comments, I would be happy to discuss. A big thank you to all of you.
Dada, thank you for your time. It was wonderful listening to you, and trust me, people like me also who don't have a background in science was definitely intrigued by the session, and definitely wondering what all is stored in this career process. So I will just like to put some questions which were asked online before the people who have attended the session can put their questions. So one of the question which had come online was, is science stream in 12th necessary for this career? Want to know the scope.
Yes, as I tried to touch upon that multiple times, you uh, you can be in, for example, I talked about law a little bit, but let's say you are into commerce and going into commerce stream, eventually you get into topics like econometrics, you get into topics like optimization, and you are automatically moving towards data science. Even if it's not called data science, it's not called ML, it's not called AI, but you are learning the very foundations of data science there. So for commerce stream, of course, you can go more into auditing, accounting stuff. You can go into more into organization skills. Whatever specialization in commerce you go into, you always feel the need of making well-informed decisions. And whenever you feel that need, the next question you should be asking is, where can I and how can I collect data that helps me get those decisions? And that's the first step. And the second step could be, how can I create a model and can I benchmark it? Can I run that data through some experts and see if there are patterns emerging that help me reach that decision? So there is a data science process that almost everybody is going through right now with small scale data. In any industry, I would say the thing about small scale data is you look at the data and all the processing you are doing in your mind, not on the computer. And you can do that because it's small scale. It can actually fit The patterns can fit and they can help you make a decision as long as it's small scale. So in many industries, analytics was the term. They are already doing analytics. And the leap from analytics to AI is large scale data. And once you have a team of data engineers who figure out how to get data, and of course you will have a decisions data scientist who helps drive all this, then you can, any industry can take that leap to data science and AI from small scale to large scale. That's the thing.
Thank you, Dada. Let me ask the second question, which is also online. How to develop and publish an app?
Yeah, so developing an app and publishing an app. For developing an app, you have to choose one of the programming languages, and I would recommend Python. If you are in the medical fraternity, they use R, so use R. Once you are decided on the language, then for R, there is a very nice web app library called Shiny, and it is very easy to quickly create a Shiny web app. You will find tons of resources on the internet how to do a Shiny web app with R. With Python, there are quite a few options. The one that I would recommend is Dash. There are others, Streamlit, Voila, and Gradio. So they are at different levels of complexity and flexibility. And you could use one of these. If you're already familiar with JavaScript, you have done JavaScript programming, you love JavaScript programming, you can just do React framework web app and combine it with a Flask Python backend. But the Dash route is for someone who is not so much into JavaScript. And Dash should be good enough for creating very, very nice looking dashboards. And deploy them on any of the cloud providers. You have Amazon AWS, that would turn out to be the best in terms of overall support and maturity. But you could also go for Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, DigitalOcean, and others. The deployment part is not too easy. Any data scientist would do well to take help from some DevOps guys. But as far as creating your own research project goes, where deploying onto a cloud and making it public is not required, you can just do Dash.
Right, Dada. There is one more thing which had come online, and I will just quote what he had written. It would be nice if we could discuss word embeddings and transformers at a high level. Also, how devising works superficially so that the language models do not become racist if the training dataset has racist biases. I know these are probably very involved topics, but a general level analogy based discussion would be great for me and many of us.
Yeah, those are questions from somebody who probably already has some experience with data science. And while this is not a forum to get into those details, yes, it's good that embeddings and transformers, these are some very, very novel ideas that have come in natural language processing. And embeddings are representations of language as a matrix. And the transformers, these are neural network architectures that are built on embeddings. And they have basically transformers are, if you think intuitively, then they are some sort of recommendation engines with some probability and weighting averages going on there. So I can share some resources. There are, you do well if you are understanding transformers, then you have to go through some animations. It's just really difficult to understand these complex architectures by reading a book. You have to go through some animations. And of course, before that, you have to be comfortable with linear algebra, and you understand recommendation engines and all. Now, it doesn't mean that if you're starting as a data scientist, you can't understand transformers or you shouldn't be using transformers. I, as a practitioner, very humbly, I cannot recreate the transformers code myself. I think myself as a data practitioner, but I can do transfer learning, which is I can fine tune the existing transformer models to my exact problem domain and use it and create something really useful. So definitely, if you are in natural language processing, you would like to do transformers, learn it that way. It's not that for using the most complicated models, you have to understand the internals. You can use them, you can go deep, top down, as you wish or as your needs evolve. If fine tuning is not getting you there, the accuracy is not to your satisfaction, then you would like to go into the details and see where a subtle architectural change could solve or could suddenly give you a leap. So all that is an art as well as mathematics. And that's the topic of a data scientist research role, more than a practitioner. And the other question was about, okay, so embeddings, transformers, and then what was the second part?
One second, Dada. It was a very technical question. So obviously, a guy with no science background.
It had to do with NLP and the field and all.
Just a second. Yeah, it was something he was saying. We should not be debiasing work superficially so that the language models do not become racist in training data set. I couldn't understand what he wanted to say, but I think you will definitely.
Yeah, no, he has brought a very important topic, and which is bias detection. And there have been models where because all these models are using historical data, and with historical data, what happens is that you get seemingly results that seem to be skewed towards one kind of prediction. Probably it hurts the most when it targets certain segments of the population more than the others. If you were to do a data science project, and if you get data from people, let's say you get data from Indian diaspora about their thoughts, and from the 1970s, and the era of lot of political turmoil and all, that will be a lot different from the data from the recent times. And if you were to predict the age of a person given the kind of authoring that he or she does, then you tend to put that person into a certain bucket, which may not be true. So there are a lot of pitfalls, and you would have to do due diligence and detect any sort of bias using all the tools like SHAP and Lime, and they help you figure out what kind of features are probably pushing it towards one direction a bit too much, and it doesn't sound reasonable. And you address that bias detection in the way that any human would. You try and decrease the weight of some of those implicit or explicit features. You want to figure out, and that's a topic which is specialized at feature engineering. Feature engineering is something where you try and figure out some implicit features which are impacting the model. And one of the way it's useful that you can extract out the implicit feature which was causing the bias and remove it away. So I think that should answer the question.
Right, Dada. So we also have participants who have been listening to you all through. So I will like to invite any of the participants. Chandrasekhar, to start with you. You can unmute.
I don't have any questions, Madhukar. It was a very enlightening session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My
Anybody
pleasure
else?
in connecting with you all, guys.
Same
Anybody
here.
else who has any question?
Any observations as well are welcome. Any thoughts, experiences?
Correct. If anybody has anything to say on this field, or if somebody is working in this field, he can definitely put something.
Hi, Madhup, Ritesh.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for speaking to us and sharing your knowledge and experience. I think we are still in the earlier phase of Adda. This is the 10th session. And as we go along, we are also learning in that sense what the audience likes. For example, your session, we can take a second part of it and we will plan it in maybe in a different way where the current or the students who have just passed out, as you mentioned in your communication, can benefit from some more uh, a small part of what you call your data science, and maybe it will be a very kind of focused group and they will benefit from it. So in that case we will try to talk with the PIT management,
Yeah,
so that that's the
a
plan.
good idea, Ritesh. And yeah, we have like maybe we can have a Prakthani Science Adda or some specialized subgroup or whatever, careers Adda, I don't know. And because Prakthani Adda is doing good, and the one thing that we all love is getting introduced to diverse topics on that Adda, and make it a lot more casual conversation. The name Adda is really nice. Can have casual conversations on diverse topics.
So Dada,
Thanks,
today
Madhu.
we had also connected with standard 11th and 12th of Vidyapit, and they obviously couldn't make it, but we are recording the entire session, and the entire session goes on YouTube video, and then it is shared with the current students of Vidyapit. So they will obviously get to see this video, and they will get to know what exactly was discussed, and then they can again connect with you by putting the questions to us, and then we also connect with them to ensure that they get your time in whatever questions they have.
True. Yeah.
I can
And
see a
just because,
hand
yeah,
raised.
one thing I have got a bonus project idea, and if anybody wants to get that bonus project idea, then please comment on the YouTube link or reach out to any of the organizers. So I was talking about the Dream Data Science project. I have quite a few ideas, and if you could share your dream project, that will be great. Irrespective of that, if you want my list of about
चलिए जा चंगू जा
10 ideas, then I can share with you.
Right, Dada, definitely. I can see a hand raised in the participant. If he has some question, Ashish.
Hi. Hello, Madhupta. I was also in 1997 batch with Rishi, and
Ashish.
I must admit that I missed a better part of the session, and I will definitely want to go back and watch it again. I am asking something which is very specific to my own venture. So what we do is to coach corporate employees on their communication fitness. What we've been doing over the last 12 years is to record these conversations. So we have nearly 3.5, 4 terabytes worth of recorded conversations already. Plus, on our existing app, people practice on a daily basis. So they are given certain scenarios, they speak, we record it, and then at the back end, the coaches listen to them and they annotate and they rate them and all that. And what the goal is to build some sort of an AI engine over there so that an AI can listen to the people and possibly rate them and give them instant feedback. So the big, hairy, audacious goal is to build something like a Fitbit of communication fitness. That when people speak, they should be able to get some kind of a feedback saying that, okay, you were X out of Y on structure, or you were A out of B on your choice of words, and what are a few areas that you should be focusing upon. So right now, through digitization and at the back end with human coaches, we are able to do it for a certain scale. AI will help us grow that scale even further. So any suggestions, thoughts, ideas, if you think this is something which is a possibility, or is it just a pipe dream and I can keep dreaming, as in I don't have any limits to dreaming yet. Oh.
No, that's awesome. That's so okay. Let me just be very direct.
Sure.
One idea that I can give you, that all there are like gyms, and gyms usually have lot of machines, where various kind of cross trainers and treadmills, and nobody ever records. Everyone notices that there is a wait time on a certain cross trainer. Maybe I should have one more of this machine. And of course, each machine takes a certain physical space. So that's a constraint. Anybody trains on a certain machine, the ideal time, workout time is 5 minutes or 15 minutes. So all these are different variables that all tell different stories with different people. Even different people have different goals, but what obviously they work on are the machines that don't help reach their goals. And linear algebra can help you there. There is a technique called
मिल जाएगा ना
there is a technique called singular value decomposition.
Okay.
And well, I won't ask you to learn that technique right now, but if you are a science graduate, maths, you have done maths, you love maths,
Mm-hmm.
then do read about singular value decomposition.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have to collect data,
Mm-hmm.
and for collecting data you would have to use AI in an ethical way, because you don't want to be recording people doing their fitness regime. You have to figure out, you have to
We
somehow.
record conversations, Madhupta. So may I show you if we have a minute, or I can wait for others to wrap up, and if you have a minute, I can show you.
Ashish, why don't you show it? It will add,
Sure.
something nice. It's a very great, interesting thing you have sharing with us. So we will be
Sure.
like more than happy.
Absolutely happy to do that. So this is like a dummy profile. So for each person, this is on mobile app as well. What we do is we set up a practice session, because many people, they may be technically strong, but when it comes to their communication, they struggle. Or people who are mid-level position, but they have never been in people-facing roles, so communication becomes a problem. So whether it is shop floor, top floor, everywhere, this is a challenge. So what we have been doing is to coach people. Now we have made a product out of it. तो इसमें हम क्या करते हैं, जैसे कि एक फार्मा का पर्सोना है, somebody who works in a production plant, तो उसको ना ऐसे ग्रामर सिखाने के बजाय, इंग्लिश वोकैबुलरी सिखाने के बजाय, what we do is we create these real life situations. ठीक है, बोलते हैं कि there is a routine inspection, you have found deviation reported. तो वो बंदा क्या करता है, उसको रिकॉर्ड करता है. So these are the clips that we record. So every day, every user records a minimum 5-minute clip. As they record this clip, they'll play back, they listen to it, and they do a self-assessment. So there is an annotation framework which has been designed. So thinking ke parameters already defined hai, choice of words ke defined hai, accuracy ke defined hai. So they do it, and at the back end, what a coach does is a coach hears and then corrects the rating. So like here, if somebody has said that I am 1 out of 8, but a coach feels that no, you have improved, there are a few things, those are better. So the coach would do the rating. And this happens on a daily basis for, right now we have around 1,300 users. We anticipate this number to go to even 20,000 by the end of this year. So this keeps going on. Plus now what we're going to be adding the voice to text data also, so that the coach can correct it. So voice transcribed into text, a coach listens to it, maps that behavior and rates it over here. And if you see, all these are pattern recognition based ratings, right? So it says that either runs out of thoughts, or is comprehensive, but there is no structure, or says that they're organized, they're structured, but only from own perspective. So these are the questions that we've been asking, that how deep do I need to go? How well do I need to define structure? Or can a machine learn that if these many samples were rated at 2 and these samples were rated at 3, can it learn on its own and say that now it can predict and say that this is a 2? So how much training would it require for a machine to learn and start doing it on its own? How many millions of clips would be required to get there? So these are the sort of questions I have. And that's what we are trying to understand here, that how can data science help us improve this whole process so that we can reduce the manual intervention, because ultimately एक coach तो 150 लोग को ही train कर पाता है ना at this point. पहले तो फिर भी one coach could manage only 30-35 people. Now we have taken it to 150-160 people, which is still good scale. But my goal is that how about one coach manages 500 people, where machine does the bulk of it. A coach is more focused on that personal connection, to motivate you, guide you a little bit, to listen to you. Those are the kind of things. And these are the things that machine can take care of. I hope that explains a little better.
Yeah, whatever you explained was icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
As far as this session goes, Ashish.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing all of that. And you have all the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you have AI, you must have an AI team already that's probably working on it.
Well, I have an AI team of one right now who's on
Oh,
more. He's from our own batch, Kanishk. So he's the one who's taking care of it.
So
Of course,
Ashish,
the annotators are
you
there
can
for me.
drop to Madhubda's house in Noida next time when you are here. Madhubda is in
Absolutely.
Noida, so you can
मैं तो
just drop
शिफ्ट हो
in
जाता
there.
हूँ मधुप्ता के घर पे.
always welcome.
Ashish
But
and
one
Madhu,
thing where you can start is doing transfer learning, adopt one of the pre-baked models on English linguistics grammar. There are a few models about grammatical correctness, for example. So not accent. There are other models that are about accent. There are some about grammar itself. Even in grammar, there are some specialized models about the grammar mistakes from a particular region or a set of speakers like Indians, North Indians, South Indians, and so on. Usually, the more specialized model you are looking for, you would have to pay for something.
Okay.
It may be not too expensive. So try and find some existing models that work for you and just deploy it as fast as you can into production. No training, nothing. Deploy that in existing model.
Okay.
Get the results. Okay. So that prediction will be something. And in parallel, of course, you ask one of your experts to annotate and then match those predictions.
Understood. Understood. That makes sense. We have worked with BERT. I like your idea that instead of waiting to keep training it, just get it into production.
Yeah, don't wait for more and more data. You can always start with a pre-baked model.
Right.
So Ashish, you have a consultant already for your board.
Yes, absolutely. And I have a financer also. किधर गया प्रशांत अग्रवाल? हाँ. फंडिंग भी करेगा ना.
अरे मधुबदा खुद स्टार्टअप चला रहे हैं तो उनके पास बहुत लोग हैं नेटवर्किंग में. तुम बस मधुबदा को ले आओ, उसके बाद डिस्कस करो उनके साथ.
ठीक है.
So anybody else who has any questions or any comments to make? Right. So Madhubda, I will like to thank you on behalf of everybody. And now that it is a virtual world, we have many people who will log into the YouTube channel because they are aware about this being uploaded every week when we do it. So most of the students that you wanted us to, get them in, and we tried our best to connect to the current two batches of 11th and 12th of Vidyapit, and they obviously were excited, but they couldn't join because of the timing. But they were looking forward to the link. So once the video is uploaded, we will share the link with you also. And then the same link will go to all the students who will get to see you and they get to hear from you. And then obviously they will connect with you as and when they need and feel like it. So thanks a lot for your time again today.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
And next Saddha is being done by a guy called Bodhayan from 2006 batch. He's in UK. He is doing on medicines. What exactly it is? Can you tell us something about it?
It is called stratified machine medicine. He tried to explain it to me. It's very interesting. Like that, he's researching on some products which is very, very specific to certain ailments and certain cells, So typically when we take a medicine, it may have some side effects. It may, suppose I'm taking something for my headache, but it may affect my, limbs or something. But his research is very, very focused on medicine which target the intended cell or mechanism. So
looks like we have a probable Nobel laureate in our batch, in our group.
Maybe. And also the good thing about Adda and Vidyapit Praktani is like 3 weeks back, he contacted me that his research team has come up with some product and they would like to connect with any rheumatologist in our group. And in
Oh.
Vidyapit, in particularly in our list, we have 2 doctors who are rheumatologists. So I connected them. One is based in Kolkata, another is in UK. So they got connected, and they are working, like, discussing his research. And so that's the great thing about
Correct.
Vidyapit. Like Ashish, you are doing such an interesting work. Uh, if you have not come to this session and Madhup had not spoken and you have not asked, you would never know. So
Right.
thanks for Madhup, Ashish, and all the audience here. So if you have any idea, even someone in the audience, if they like to speak something which could
Yeah.
be help, please propose to Rishi or anyone in the EC or Adda group. But Madhu, we I think you were one of the earliest one, who I contacted around 5 months back, and I know that you have been very busy with your startup, but you made time for us. So
Correct.
thank you very much. And Rishi,
Yes.
thanks for moderating this. I'm
No, sir.
really very amazed by the connections we have done here.
Yes, Dada.
Ashish,
The idea that you started almost 6 months back has, really got many of us together, which is the best part about it. We keep getting all, cross connections across batches, which people just find common interest area. So I guess that is the best part about this Adda.
yes, definitely. Thank you.
So Madhubda, once again, thank you very much on behalf of the entire Vidyapit Praktani, and hope to see you again.
Yes, sure. My pleasure. Always.
Okay, Madhubda. So I
Thank
will
you, Madhubda.
pause the session, and then I will stop the video also, and then we will upload it and update you again once it is done.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Madhubda.